Alright, you guys, and welcome back to another video. And today, I wanted to do a kind of large transport and cargo ship face-off. Now, this video comes as a suggestion from one of you guys in the comments down below. And I deeply encourage you guys to comment ship comparisons and face-offs that you guys want to see me do in future videos. Now, this commenter probably has one or more of these ships in their fleet currently, or in buybacks, or they're trying to do a CCU chain, and they want to compare these ships for different gameplay styles. Because I've talked about this in previous videos, the game is constantly evolving, and so are our fleets based on kind of the changes that CAG has announced. Now, fleet management is something that we're all going to have to do or do regularly, because CIG's store policies allows people to melt, buy back, and upgrade ships fairly easily. This is something that makes ship comparisons very important. Now, these ships are very different in their intended roles, but again, like I've said in previous videos, many of us use ships outside of their intended roles, outside of their designed performance envelopes, because the game allows us to do that. That's one of the incredible things about Star Citizen, is that we can do whatever we want. So let's get right into these videos and see how these ships really stack up against each other, and kind of talk a little bit about what we might want out of these different ships. So to start things off, I'm going to start on this side with the C2. Now, originally, the commenter wanted to see me compare the Liberator and the Ironclad, but I thought it made sense to throw the Hercules in here as well, because for the longest time since it came out, it has been the premier cargo and vehicle transport ship in the game. Now that the Ironclad is in development, will it take the C2 spot and dethrone it as king of cargo and transport? I think it's pretty interesting comparison. At the end of the day, because they're so similar in price, it would be an easy upgrade to go to the Ironclad from a C2, and I fully suspect a lot of people are going to end up doing that. Now, the Liberator is an interesting one as well, because ship transport is very dynamic, right? We've seen this with the Polaris hangar being able to fit a lot of different ships. And if you're going out in an org or a group of friends, having a ship that can carry multiple ships and vehicles, if it fits, it sits mentality, is deeply ingrained in the Star Citizen player base. Now, with the C2, you are kind of limited with the way that its cargo area is designed. So you really can't fit those larger ships like the Sabres and the Scorpiuses in something like a Hercules, but you can fit them in a Polaris. Now, the Liberator's landing pads are small landing pads, the same size metric as a small hangar. So if you can fit it inside of a Polaris, you should be able to land it on a Liberator. Now, I have all of these ship specs here, so let's go through the specs first, and then we'll talk a little bit about use case stuff. Now, with the Hercules, it's 94 meters long. It has 2 large shields. It has 2 pilot control size 5s, 2 size 4s on remote turret at the back on top, and then 2 size 4s in another remote turret on the bottom. It can carry a cargo capacity of 696 SU, and it's coming in at $400 currently. Then we have the Liberator, 119 meters, 2 large shields. Then in terms of weapons, we have 2 size 5s, okay, on a man turret at the top behind the cockpit. Then we have 2 size 2s on a point defense turret on top, and then 2 size 2s on a point defense turret on the bottom. Now, what's really interesting about the point defense turrets and the PDS system that we've seen with, ships like the 890 Jump, the Constellation Phoenix, and the Polaris is that these point defense turrets are relatively capable, and they shoot at basically anything that threatens this ship. So in theory, you should be able to solo a Liberator. Now, this ship is coming in at 400 SCU, and it's selling at a price of $575. It's on concept, so more likely that will jump up to about 600 when this ship goes live. That is significantly more expensive than the other ships in this face-off. Last, let's talk about the Ironclad. The Ironclad is 120 meters long. It has 4 large shields. That's a lot more defensive capabilities than the other two, about double. Then you have 2 size 5s on a man turret up at the front here on the right side. Then you have 2 size 3s on this side here. Then you have 2 size 3s on this side here. And then you have an internal turret in the cargo bay, and I guess that is to defend the cargo that you have. That is very interesting. It is the only ship on this list, or in the game, I would say, that has an internal defensive turret. Now, it has the most cargo out of all of these, with 1536 SCU of cargo. So this is a serious machine. This ship is coming in at $450. Again, only $50 more than the C2, making it a pretty good value in my opinion. Again, if we're talking in terms of, value for a digital spaceship, no, $450 is obviously too much money. But in comparison to the C2 Hercules, it's only a $50 jump for almost, 3 times the cargo capacity. You're talking about a lot of cargo here. So what do I think about this face-off? Okay, one of the first things you want to look at is, what is the crew, desired crew gonna be for this ship that you're purchasing, right? If you are a solo player, the C2 is going to be very attractive because it is an easily soloable ship, right? Many people do it. You have pilot control guns. It's the only ship on this list with pilot control guns. So with those shields and those guns, you can reliably defend yourself, and it has a lot of cargo. It has more cargo than the Liberator. Now, is the Liberator soloable? In a sense, I would say similarly. It does not have pilot control guns, but those point defense turrets will give you a fighting chance to run away. And then at the very end of that spectrum, you have the Ironclad with no pilot control guns, no point defense turrets. So in terms of survivability, it does have twice the shields as the other ships on this list. So realistically, if your strategy is to just run away, I think that you might be able to get away with soloing an Ironclad. But strictly speaking, it is probably the least designed for solo gameplay out of these 3. And I would say the C2 is probably the most designed for solo gameplay on this list, with the Liberator sitting somewhere in the middle of that. Next, we're going to talk about vehicle and ship transport. And I would say probably the C2 Hercules is on the lighter side, right? You can carry, you can fit a Pisces in a C2. You will be able to fit, Furies in a C2, tanks, obviously, ballistas, obviously, Ursa medevacs, obviously, Rock and Rock DS. You can get all of those types of vehicles and ships in a C2. But the amount of ships and vehicles that you can carry uh, jumps up with something like the Ironclad, right? Because the Ironclad has those doors that open up at the top. So ships of different metrics should be able to fit. Now, we look at the door area in the Ironclad, it looks like it is easily about the size of one of these small landing pads, making this opening, it's probably going to be roughly the same size as the Polaris hangar, right? It can fit 1536 SU of cargo. So this is a big cargo space, right? But it's not a dedicated hangar, it's not a dedicated landing or vehicle area. Of course, cargo grids can easily hold vehicles, and CAG basically showed as much in the concept artwork for the Ironclad. People are going to park vehicles in here. It's kind of a way where a parking area or a ship garage is not necessarily a cargo area, but a cargo area is always going to be able to be a place where you can park a vehicle. So the Ironclad is no slouch in that department, and I feel like because you have the ramp at the front and the opening at the top, you may be able to fit larger ships than something like a C2. But then when you get to the Liberator, it is specifically designed for carrying ships and transporting ground vehicles that are larger than that. Those landing pads, you should be able to fit, a medium fighter with ease, a heavy fighter with ease, inside and on the landing pads on top. Remember, you have two small landing pads and one extra small landing pad at the front, and then you have those two inside as well. So if you want to, transport ballistas and tanks easily, no problem. But then you will also probably be able to fit Hornets inside, right? Two Hornets inside, two Hornets on top, a Fury in the front or something like that. And again, if these small landing pads are the same metric as the Polaris's small hangar, you should be able to fit, even more things. Things like the New Fortune, Prospectors, Terrapins. All of these ships, when the player base gets their hands on Liberator, I am very excited to see what people are going to be able to fit on this thing. But yeah, it is the baby carrier ship. It is, that step below a Kraken, essentially. So having that small crew requirement and all of that versatility with the ships that you can have on there, it gives you a lot of potential gameplay opportunities, right? Now with 400 SU, it has the least amount of cargo storage on this list. But because it has such a large interior, I have no idea what the player base is going to do with its off-grid storage capabilities, right? Now, obviously, there is a huge discussion in the community whether off-grid storage is going to destroy your ship. And I'm going to say right at the beginning of this, I do not believe it will be an automatic ship explosion type situation, right? With Maelstrom coming into the game and ships going to have physical damage. Obviously, if your cargo moves around, it will damage your ship. But strictly speaking, once the cargo boxes settle down, they don't really move around in flight because of the artificial gravity on the ship. So as long as the boxes aren't moving, it shouldn't damage it. And once CIG gets the, janky physics with boxes jumping around and doing crazy things again, it shouldn't damage the ship. Now, again, I'm a big fan of off-grid storage because it just gives you the ability to put different things in different places. It does become a much bigger problem once you start stacking things. Stacking boxes is very unhappy when it's off of a grid, but again, that single layer at the bottom, uh, it gives you a lot of cargo there. Now, because of its sheer size, right? So you look at the size metric of the Liberator and the Ironclad, when it comes to 36 SU boxes, you're probably going to be able to fit a lot in here outside that 400 SU. So in terms of competing with something like the Hercules, I'm fairly confident you could get at least the Hercules cargo capacity inside of a Liberator, and still, you'd have those landing pads at the top and the one in the front. With a ramp in the front and the back, you also wouldn't be blocking any vehicles or ships from entering or leaving. So I think that, again, in terms of cargo usability, solo versus crewed gameplay, there are a lot of options here with all of these ships. And in my opinion, that makes the Ironclad very attractive. Again, a lot of those shields helps with those defensive capabilities. I know people are going to solo the ship, but obviously the C2 is a lot more solo friendly. So it really all comes down to you knowing how you play the game, how you intend to play the game, how many people you intend to play with. And I think there are, some more upsides to the Liberator. For instance, it has those jump seats on the inside, right? Because it is designed to be, again, a more militarized transport ship. Now, the Ironclad Assault, which is closer in price point with the Liberator, also has some of those jump seats and has a lot more weaponry, more defenses, and it has that vehicle maintenance on the inside. CIG hasn't really said a lot, or if anything, about vehicle maintenance inside of the Liberator. I think it would make sense for Liberator to have, light fabrication to be able to repair vehicles and ships that land on it, because it's kind of more designed to be a dedicated, ship and vehicle transport ship, which again, the Ironclad Assault is also designed to be a dedicated, cargo and ship transport. So I think it makes sense if it's on the Assault for it to also be on Liberator. It makes sense that the C2 or the M2 or the A2 doesn't really have that capability, because I think the more point-to-point, ship transports, whereas, the Liberator and the Ironclad will probably do more holistic fleet logistics, right? Where they might have multiple stops, go to multiple systems, repair and do things. They're more keystones of the fleet for combat situations, right? With the Assault and the Liberator both being more militaristic ships. And I think you could probably also talk a little bit about the M2 again here in this situation, also having those jump seats. But I think in terms of price, again, across the board, it kind of falls in line with these other ships. But I think that at that price, you're getting more with the Ironclad Assault and the Liberator, because with the Assault, again, you have so much more cargo than the M2, and with the Liberator you have so much more vehicle landing space than the M2. So I think the value kind of starts to fall apart right there. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of M2 owners upgraded to either one of these ships as well. Again, with the Assault, you have that vehicle repair and so much more cargo. With the Liberator, you have so much more vehicle landing space, right? With more similar cargo. So I think that interesting decisions to be made all around. This is kind of a good face-off, an interesting comparison to make. Let me know what you guys think about these ships. What are you going to get for your fleet specifically? I know a lot of people are excited about the Ironclad being in development and hopefully getting released this year, which would be a pretty fast turnaround for CIG for a ship this size especially. So I want to hear what you guys think. What ships are you getting for this specific role in this kind of class and price point? It's very interesting to hear thoughts from you guys on this stuff. I'm always reading the comments down there and having these exciting discussions with you guys. But that's going to be it for me in this video. You guys, like I always say at the end of these videos, like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Salut!